Okay, I should be live on Facebook. If there's somebody out there that's a supporter of mine or the work, please let me know that you can hear this okay before I give this message. This message is going to trump those that have recently given with my rants, justifiable rants. But this is an important message that I'm going to give that people can share, that those who follow the real Illuminati and the work in which am involved, you'll be able to use this video as proof, actual evidence. Then you can try to let the enemies and critics of this work try to counter what I'm going to say, try to come up with empirical evidence. But I don't see. I need to see. I don't know if somebody can even hear me. Okay, there. Somebody did. Thank you, Rebecca Franklin. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Listen carefully. Recently, I went off. I'm forced to utilize Julie Taggart's social media page because I don't have one of my own. I'll never have one of my own because once I have one of my own, I'm traceable. Facebook or whomever can trace where I'm at the time. And with the release of this next book by the real Illuminati that explains empirically and gives absolute evidence of where the Book of Mormon comes from, you can bet your bottom dollar that the Mormon great secret combination of political, business, and religious powers are not going to like it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit. And this I do this for the sake of the supporters that did get on their social media page and they take the time to respond, to share the message of the real Illuminati, share what they are doing in this world. Yes, I used to be the official representative for that group of people. I'm no longer that official representative. I help them only in editing the words that they put out so that I can dumb them down. My vocabulary is nothing like theirs or like some of you who have studied and you like to use your big words and make people think that you're smart because you know all these different big words. Now, what I'm going to say today, what my supporters are going to be able to use, the supporters of the real Illuminati, this is going to be evidence, empirical evidence that's out there now. It's going to be public. It's right there. It's on social media. And here's what we're going to do. Okay. Now, I went on a rant about the Mormons. And the reason why I am the Mormon Church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the Mormon people I have such a distaste in my mouth is because they have the Book of Mormon. They have that incredible book. It's not a scripture from God per se. Well, it depends on how you view God, but it's not what the church, these religions report it to be, or Mormons report it to be, or what these missionaries who go out throughout the world, you see all over the world, their little name tags as elder so-and-so and sister so-and-so, as a representative or a missionary of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And they tout that Book of Mormon. They utilize that Book of Mormon in a way to get somebody to read it with a sincere heart and real intent. And once somebody reads that book, the person feels this draw, this spiritual relevance, not only to their own life, but to their own spiritual and religious beliefs. That book was meant to do that. But what it was not meant to do was to deceive a person to join that church. This book was written long before any church existed. Okay, well, not long. The people for whom this book was written and who took the reins of this book to share it with others, they wanted a church, even though the Book of Mormon does not give them any authority to form such a church like they did. It's a different form. Anyway, here's the point. That Book of Mormon is not what the Mormons pretend it to be. And we're going to prove that without any doubt. Okay, now I went on a rant against the Mormons. And they like to be called Latter-day Saints. And I would love that they would just set aside the Book of Mormon, not have anything to do with it. Because that church, none of its doctrine, none of its tenets, none of its teachings support the Book of Mormon teachings. Not one of them. In fact, most of what the Mormons do is in direct violation of the lessons that are taught in the Book of Mormon. Now, I'm not going to go into that right now because I'm going to put a pretty powerful challenge out there that I know without a doubt that there's not a person in this world that's going to be able to step up to that challenge. And that's why there's people, that's why your loved one and friends who your loved ones and your friends whom you think are being deceived by me and by this word spend countless hours and studying this work, and they share it with you with their emotions, with their heart, hoping that you would see it. But what do? You get angry. Instead of just loving your loved ones and saying, hey, you know what? I'm going to look into this and see what's going on. You're scared, and you should be. Because if you look into it like they did, your entire life is going to change. Everything about your religious views is going to change. Now, the recent rants were about incredible poverty, inequality that's happening in the southern borders of the United States. Now, I'm going to talk to those of you in this world. That Book of Mormon has nothing to do with the rest of the world. It has nothing to do with you. Though the Mormons go throughout the world thinking everybody has to have this message, that's because they give a different message in their religion than what the Book of Mormon talks about. The Book of Mormon is all about the United States of America. Wherever the United States of America goes, the world goes. That's a fact. It doesn't matter in what country you live or in what country you give your allegiance and patriotism, and you believe that you're whatever country you belong to, and that you're great and you're good. You are, but this book is about the United States. The United States controls this world for now. That's how it is. After World War II, that's exactly what happened. If anybody knows history, they would understand where the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank came from. These are the institutions that print the money, that spread it throughout this world. Okay? It is all based on the power of the United States of America. At this time, there isn't a country on this earth that can make any move, military or otherwise, that the United States does not know about. Well, there are things happening both in China and Russia. They're in scientific enclaves that are secret, that are trying to change that. But the fact is, America's military is zeroed in on every single country out there that poses any threat to them or to their allies or to anyone else. The United States can destroy any country in a matter of just a few minutes. They have that capability. Okay? It is the most powerful nation on earth. It was meant to be that way. It was meant to be an example of how humans can create a society and a government that's proper for all of humanity. Only the United States has the power to give that example. And that power comes from the way that they can print money and get it out there into the markets, financial markets. Okay? So my rant recently was because the Book of Mormon is all about that. It was written in the early 19th century as the United States began to develop and really show its power in the world. After the War of 1812, where the United States was engaged again in a world conflict, after that conflict, the United States basically isolated itself, and it's never been threatened. Never. Don't let these right-wing, or I don't want to even call that, people who love their country, don't let them deceive you to think that soldiers go out there and die for the United States, because they do not. They do not die for the United States of America. Nothing that they have done since the Revolutionary War, basically, or the War of 1812, nothing they have done has really protected them from any other country. So don't fall for that bullshit that the military and the United States military is out there protecting the freedom of the United States. No. And then you'll have politicians in the U.S. tell you that they support freedom fighters or Contras or people who are against their governments out there. And America's there to help them, to help people do what they do. And that is separate themselves, people, from a tyrannical government, or a government that doesn't support and serve the people. But we've seen over the years, especially over the recent years, since the start of the Arab Springs, but far beyond that America's involvement in other countries' situations, trying to do this to help people, has done nothing more than devastate economies, devastate people, kill hundreds of thousands of people, has done nothing to further and progress freedom and democracy throughout this world and other countries. Not a damn thing. Nobody can prove that wrong, because it's true. That's why you have countries like Russia and China, for one of many examples, that support countries like Syria and Venezuela. Here's why they support them. Don't listen to your bullshit politicians who as soon as the camera's on them, they start to lie to you. They're not going to tell you. If you want an idea what Joe Biden's like behind the scenes, then Google Joe Biden drops the F-bomb on an open mic to Barack Obama. And you'll see how these guys really speak behind the scenes. They use the F-bomb all the time. And here I get castigated by people because I come out and use it. I'm not going to use it at all today. Because I'm going to talk to the people for whom the message of the real Illuminati is concerned and is directed. And then we're going to give you a challenge. So, most of you for whom they have done this work to try to get you to think in the right way, believe in this Jesus Christ. Have you ever thought for a moment how it was that this guy that you believe in, according to your stories that you've been taught, according to your Bible, how this guy had a message and didn't do anybody any harm? How was it that all of the people, every single one of them, according to the story, turned on him, even his closest friends? They hated him. No, his closest friends didn't hate him. I'm talking about Peter when Peter denies him thrice because the rest of the people in society. How did the people in society turn against him? What was it? And your perception of him is the long hair and the beard and those type of things. Okay, that's exactly why the real Illuminati have asked me to put on that type of character, that type of thing. Have the long hair, have the Jesus look, Christopher. Christopher, my name, even in and of itself, bearer of Christ. What would happen if that type of guy came today and started to do exactly what he did in those stories? Because the same thing would happen. All of society, all of the religious leaders, of course, turned on him, all of the political leaders, and all of society, all of you rank and file members of every church, so-called Christian church, would turn on that guy and call him blasphemous, call him a womanizer, call him all these crazy things, just because of the message that he taught, having done nothing wrong to anybody. Now, I do what I do to present and demonstrate a stark difference between me and the work that I do and the work of your foolish false messengers that you call religious leaders, whether it's pope, priests, cardinals, kings, bishops, whatever you might call them, prophets, seers, revelators, whatever. These guys do not have a clue what's going on this planet. Not one of them has ever come up with a plan to solve poverty. Yet they tout and they proclaim that they have this direct inspiration or involvement with God, a God that loves all of his children. Now, let's go back to that Book of Mormon, which is about the United States of America, because that's what it's about. I condemned the members of that church recently. It's not the members that are the problem. It's their leaders. It's their deceptive leaders. The members don't have a clue. They just simply are taught that, oh, God has a church on earth, and it's the only true church, and God talks to our leaders. Now, this doctrine and this belief is completely 100% diametrically opposed to what the Mormons are actually taught in their temple endowment, the most holy, sacred endowment that they receive in their temples. In their temple endowment, they are strictly and clearly taught that while they are going through this earth in the lone and dreary world, represented by two characters in that play that are Adam and Eve, each, which represents each and every person going through this mortal life, there's only one spiritual entity, only one, that hears and answers their prayers, that guides them, that gives them inspirations, and that has come up with all these religions and doctrines of men and philosophies of men mingled with Scripture. Lucifer. The characters in that play that represent Heavenly Father and Jesus are Elohim and Jehovah, respectively. They have nothing to do with the people while they are going through this lone and dreary world. Absolutely nothing. The Mormons don't want to talk about what goes on in their holy temple. They don't want to talk about that part of their endowment because they have no way to explain that. That's exactly what it teaches. That's what Joseph Smith, under the direction of the same people who have recruited me, the real Illuminati, presented to the people because he couldn't tell them the truth. Throughout his entire life, when people started talking about mysteries, the mysteries of God, Joseph always said that I can't tell you what the real truth is. If I tell you what the real truth is, you're going to just kill me. That's what happens. Everyone in my position who actually know the real truth, who confront the powers that control this world, the secret combinations that are done in secret with religion, politics, and business, they're always killed. Always. So, What did they do in the early 1800s and 1900s? Okay, they wrote a book to try to influence the American Christians to do the right thing, to try to get them to focus on the right thing. And that entire Book of Mormon is all about creating a society in the United States that helps the poor and impoverished people, especially those who are the descendants of the Native American peoples, whether they're Mayan, Peruvian, whatever they might be, Native American, both North and South, all on this continent. That book was meant to inspire the Christian people to create a society and a financial economic infrastructure that treated everybody equally. You read that book and you read it correctly, everything in there is about that. It talks about, it's given it in a Christian way to inspire the Gentiles, who are these white-skinned European Christians that call themselves Christians, to do everything in their power to help those people. That's it. But if they do not, then it talks about what's going to happen if they do not. But instead of doing those things, they've completely transfigured the entire narrative of the Book of Mormon to create this incredible church that they call the only true church of God on earth, which has become the wealthiest church in the entire world per capita. And I think it's even as institution-wise, one of the wealthiest institutions in the entire world. That's the corporation of the president, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They don't care what I'm saying, what this guy with long hair and straggly hair and a beard is saying. They don't care. They just call me an apostate that used to work church security. They'll say, oh, he was a parking lot attendant. Oh, no, I was not a parking lot attendant. I've been through every single room in that temple, every single room in 47 East, which is the office building of where all their heads and 12 apostles. I've been through your files, dudes. It's after I did what I did that you changed some of your security protocols, so the security officers didn't have that type of access. But luckily for this world, I had that access. And did I find anything unbecoming or nefarious in my investigations? Absolutely not. Mormon leaders are not bad people. They're great men. They're great grandpas. And if you look at them at that, that's what they are. They're just old men that are completely disconnected with this world. They don't even know what's going on in the world because they depend on their intelligence. They have intelligence units just like the United States government does. Go out there, tell me what's up. So you got these guys that report to them and tell them what's going on. But they don't know of themselves because every time they go out in the public, they're worshipped like gods. People stand up and want to shake their hand and say, oh my God, there's an apostle. It's ridiculous. The same things were happening in that Jesus story. But why was it that whatever that Jesus guy taught, all of the people, all of the members of every church that existed at that time, whether the church was ran by a Sadducee or a Pharisee or a priest or a scribe, whatever it was, they all turned on him. They wanted him dead. They wanted him silenced. They chose him rather than a guy that had been actually convicted of a crime. And I guarantee you that the message of the real Illuminati that was given through me with the publication, the sealed portion of their Book of Mormon, scares the living bejesus out of those leaders because they know how many faithful members of that church, after reading that one book, have left that church because their eyes were opened. I am not a member of the church. I do not have their priesthood authority, but I was given a directive to go and tell first the leaders that they were wrong, that they're misleading these people, and then the members. This is very consistent with the Book of Mormon stories. The Book of Mormon narrative actually expresses and gives examples, two very prominent ones, of what a guy like me has to do. The first one is with a guy named Abinadi. He sent directly to the leaders of the church at that time, the leaders of the only true and living church that existed in the story, that had the priesthood power and authority. There was nobody else. And he went there. At first part, the people just threw him out of there and said, get out of here. You're just nuts. You're crazy. They get angry. They get angry. Why do you guys get angry when your loved ones come to you and say, I found something special for me? Why do you get so upset? I know, because you're afraid. You're afraid that that loved one of yours might be onto something, and you don't want to change what you believe. You don't. Anyway, Abinadi goes and he preaches to the basically 12 apostles of the church that existed at that time. And of course, they throw him out and say, you're deceived. We know the people are righteous because they do the right thing. They obey the law of Moses, blah, blah, blah. Eventually, they burn the guy. The next example is a guy named Samuel the Lamanite that was sent to the entire church. And once he tried to talk to some people, they just poo-pooed him and threw him out. Then he had to get up on a wall that surrounded this incredible city that they had developed. And he started telling them how bad they were as a people, how bad they were as a church. And they actually had their president, their prophet, seer, and revelator, basically, the example that was used in that story, a guy named Nephi at that time, who listened to Samuel the Lamanite and said, this guy is right on the money. Abinadi and Samuel the Lamanite didn't come from within the church. They didn't have this so-called bullshit priesthood power. They weren't anointed with authority. They didn't have a little badge on themselves that said Elder Abinadi and Elder Samuel. No. They were called by God, according to story, to go and preach repentance to this people. And what did they tell them? It's right there in the book. It's right there. This is what's upset me the most. It's upset me the most because that church took the Book of Mormon to become one of the most wealthiest churches in the entire world. And along with wealth comes power. That's what happens. There is an attorney, and I'm going to give a challenge in here and show how, and prove, and it could be proven in a court of law if there was a just judge, and there's no such thing in this world today. Very, very few, if any. If there was a just judge to abide by the law specifically as it was written. Okay? In a court of law, we could prove beyond any reasonable doubt, empirically, that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has perpetuated a fraud upon this world. That every single person whom their missionaries contact, and they tout that Book of Mormon, they misrepresent material facts to obtain action, and I'm basically quoting the code, the law, that is a civil fraud, okay? The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints misrepresents the Book of Mormon, a material fact, to obtain action or forbearance by another person, which means they want that other person to join their church. To join their church, that person has to do what they tell them to do and pay them 10% of their income in order to be saved in their pretended and misrepresented heaven. That's what they do. That's the first element of civil fraud. The second is that the other individual who's hearing the message, hearing the fraudulent testimonies, hearing the fraud, relies on this information, relies on the misrepresentation to act. And the act is they rely on these missionaries telling them, look, we're the only church on earth that has this Book of Mormon, and because you can read it, and it's powerful, and it talks about Christ, and it's great, now you got to join our church. It's bullshit. We're doing everything in our power to take back that Book of Mormon and take it from that Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You guys can be the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints all you want. Call yourselves Latter-day Saints. You better stop using that Book of Mormon incorrectly. Because we're going to prove without a shadow of a doubt that one of your 12 apostles, Gary Stevenson, in a few conferences back, lied to the world, lied to the Mormons. And I'm going to put out a presentation. I'm going to put out a presentation that any attorney could use to represent an investigator or a person who's newly joined to that church and started paying 10% of their income to that fraudulent church. I'm going to give that presentation. And here's the challenge. When that comes out in the near future, and you see that presentation of fraud, the challenge is if you can actually find any type of error in the presentation of our case that the Mormon Church is fraudulent. And I got to back up. It's not the Mormon Church. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Because the Book of Mormon is irrelevant to this church and their religion and their doctrine. That's what pisses me off the most. But it culminates my pissed offness in what the Book of Mormon tells these people to do. And that's open those southern borders. Open those southern borders and let those people in. To have jobs, to have health care, to have the things that they need, that the infrastructure here in the United States of America can bless these people with. And they're not going to take anybody's jobs because most of you, European Americans, don't want their jobs. You go to college and pretend you have this intelligence so you do not have to have to work, that you can someday be financially independent. Anyway, I'm not going to go into that. Fact is, here's the case. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and every single person that touts themselves as a Latter-day Saint or the name of Mormon, are fraudsters. They are fraudsters. They're presenting that book in a fraudulent way. I'm going to prove that. Because the third element, first element, somebody misrepresents a material fact, saying that this church believes in the Book of Mormon, and this church, the Book of Mormon is the cornerstone of their religion. Okay? That's a misrepresentation, because the Book of Mormon has nothing to do with their gospel of Jesus Christ. Yet they'll tell you, yeah, the fullness of the gospel is in the Book of Mormon. But then when you read it and study it properly, you find out that most of the doctrines and the ordinances and the things that this church is doing is completely in contrary to what the Book of Mormon says. Especially what the church is doing. These white European Americans that aren't doing everything in their power to establish what's called in the book a New Jerusalem, a Zion, not for you, for the Native American people, the people south of the border that need jobs, that are dying every day because you won't open your borders. And you, especially you, in that centralized bastion of Mormonism in the Utah, are conservative and support strong borders. You're misrepresenting a material fact to obtain an action from people to get them to join your fucked up church. That's what you're doing. And yes, I'm being exactly like Jesus was talking to the Sadducees and the Pharisees and the scribes in his day. And he used profanity back then because he was upset. Do you not think he was dropping a few F-bombs when he was clearing the money changers out of the temple? You bet your ass he was. And the people are looking at like that, like, oh my gosh, we weren't expecting this of this nice guy. Well, anyway. The second element of fraud is that the other person relies upon the misrepresentation, relies upon the Mormon Church saying that their foundation of their religion is in the Book of Mormon, that the Book of Mormon is a keystone to their religion, that the fullness of the everlasting gospel is in the Book of Mormon. And then they teach a completely different gospel than what the Book of Mormon teaches. That's misrepresentation. That's fraud to get these people to join your fucking church and take 10% of their money. That's why I'm pissed. Excuse the F-bombs, but I'm telling you, Benadiah, Samuel the Lamanite, Jesus Christ, every true messenger that there's ever been has dropped a few F-bombs in their own languages. Yes. The third element is that the other person suffers injury as a result of the act of the misrepresentation. How many people have suffered because they've lost their family, or they've lost 10% of their income, or they've been suffered because they're gay, for example. And they join this church thinking, oh my gosh, I read this Book of Mormon and it must be, the Spirit told me it was true, and these people are so good, they treat me so nice, but they get in there and they tell me that gay people are not right, and it's not. It doesn't say that in the Book of Mormon. It's nowhere in there. You fools. Anyways, there are so many ways that people who are given the Book of Mormon and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints perpetuates fraud against them that are injured because of that church, because of what they've done. I'm going to prove that. I'm going to lay out the case in a future podcast that I'm going to give with a Zoom podcast. And there isn't a damn attorney in this fucked up world that's going to be able to say, hey man, this is right. This is right on the money. But do you think they're going to take the case and go against that powerful church? Remember, money. When you have incredible amounts of money, attorneys are afraid. Attorneys are the most bullshit thing that we've ever allowed into our society. The United States Constitution does not say that we need attorneys. We need judges. We need courts. That's what a court is. That's what a judge is. Judge is simply the court. But where did all these attorneys come from? That started controlling everything and charging you guys anywhere from $250 an hour to who knows how many dollars an hour because they wear their nice suits and they're able to get up there and con the law. Use the law for their own sake. Well, let me tell you what the Book of Mormon says about that. The foundation of the destruction of this people is because of their judges and lawyers, especially your lawyers. All judges were once lawyers, so they have a sympathetic ear and heart for lawyers that come up. You lawyers are fucked up ridiculous, And you're causing the problems in this world. Anyways. But I'm going to present a case. Obviously, I got help in doing that. We're going to present a case. A case that if an investigator of the church that joined that Mormon church took to court to show a fraud being perpetuated by that church, they'll be able to prove it. No doubt. With those three elements. You wait. And if we can't do that, if in this future broadcast, this future presentation of this case, if you can convince your family or friend that we are in error, and I'll be the one presenting it, if you can convince them that long-haired hippie guy doesn't know what he's talking about, and the things that he's saying, the evidence that he's presenting is incorrect, then you'll prove to your loved one that this work isn't what it's claimed to be. But you know what? We've given this challenge before. There isn't a person on this earth that can prove that the economic plan that we have presented through the Humanity Party will not end poverty in a week. Not in years and years and years. Those people can't wait years and years and years. How many of you would like to be homeless and not have anything and be on the street? Each day that goes by, how would you like to know that, well, it's in the process. The seed's been planted and maybe we'll get this going in a few years when people change. What does it mean to them? What does it mean to that little kid or that female, underage or whomever, who has to go out in the street and fuck some man because she needs to eat? And it's all on you guys. And that's why I use those F-bombs. And that's why I'm so concerned. And that's why I get upset. Using the F-bombs, saying things like they're supposed to be said, the real truth, is what makes you guys so anxious. It's what makes you angry and says, this guy's crazy, this guy's lame, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Really? So what you're telling your loved ones and your friends who have followed this work is that they're stupid and non-intellectual? Well, I'm glad they're allowing me to present this case. When I present the case, it's just of how this church has perpetuated fraud against the people who investigate it. There'll be no doubt then. But we can't do it. There were a few people who tried to sue the church based on that. We knew that they weren't going to go anywhere because there's no attorney, there's no judge that's going to handle this way. Because there's a combination of power and ego and pride that are done behind the scenes between judges and lawyers, between judges and legislatures, between the powers that control especially the United States government. These combinations of powers in secret are the things that are destroying the world. So I'm giving this message today in support of those of you who have shared those other messages. Share this one. Now you have the right to say, okay, family and friends, if I'm so wrong and this guy's such an evil con artist, whatever, then let's wait till he provides the evidence of the actual fraud that's been perpetuated by that church by using the Book of Mormon. And then you'll see. I'll be giving that evidence. I'm not sorry for coming on here and dropping a few F-bombs and make some of you go cringe. Ooh, because I could use the same friggin' words. I could say frig or frack or whatever it is that your family and friends use that you think are gosh darn. That you guys think that your family and friends are just fine. But goddamn it fucking shit. What the hell? That's the same thing. Exact same thing. But the reason why you want to get rid of me, the reason why I anger you at this point, the reason why you sit there with this shit-eating smile on your face thinking, oh yeah, this guy, he did something, because you fucking know I'm right. And not one of you has ever dared to take me on in public. Now, I would never do it in person now because ain't no doubt in my mind, in our mind, there are people out there that if given the opportunity, they will take me out. No doubt. But that's not going to happen. I'll provide the evidence in this case in the near future. But for now, I just want to shout out to those who follow this work, who've done what you've done. This long-haired hippie dude is doing exactly what that Jesus Christ character did when he was alive. Thanks for your support. And to those of you who are the Peters out there who deny knowing me, who don't want anything to do with me, fuck you. Anyway, that's my message today. Bye.